I'll try. Hi. Nice to see a few familiar faces on the call as well. So my name is Raj Singh. I am calling from Somerset. So that's pretty far away from you guys. I run an organisation called Social First Aid. It's a social enterprise, but I'm also an associate for NDTI, and I work with Lee and other colleagues at Hartlepool around everything to do with community. That still doesn't tell you anything about who I am. So basically, in Somerset, around about 6 years ago, I was involved in quite a big movement around community-led support. So to give you an idea, the local authority in Somerset 6 years ago were not very attuned to community, and neither was the voluntary sector, which I worked for, ready to deliver. Didn't necessarily have a credible offer at the time. And so I've been on that whole journey throughout the last 6 years of basically bringing value to the third sector, creating partnerships with the local authority, and creating a kind of better community system in Somerset. So it's kind of been quite a long journey that we've been on. And before I've only just left my role in Somerset, but I was doing exactly the same stuff that you guys have been doing in terms of the pandemic response. In the first kind of 8-9 months, assisted around about 60,000 people in Somerset, kind of 200,000 meals, all the usual stuff that you guys have been doing as well. I was doing and involved with on the ground. So I've very much kind of been hands-on. And in terms of why I'm here today, I'll leave that to Julian to introduce later on.
Part of the work we've been doing was Raj has done some amazing work in Somerset around looking at what we think and mean and understand by community. And one of the things that we were really keen to do was sort of see what we thought our staff thought, because we all talk about community, don't we? All use the word an awful lot, and it sort of gets, but actually what we actually think and know and understand by it are often very different things. So Raj has developed this tool, which I'll let him explain far more about because it's very technical, much more than I am, which we've did with our staff before Christmas, wasn't it? I can't even remember, Raj. Was it back end of last year, wasn't it?
October, maybe September, October.
Yeah, it was that long ago.
A long time ago.
Yeah. So we did this with our staff, and it's been an absolute eye opener in terms of what our staff needs. When I'm talking about our staff, I'm talking about staff who work in my service. So they are sort of traditional library assistants and people like that who have now become support hub officers and had to change the way they work, to social workers and senior social workers and team managers, and just to try and understand. So when we're talking about community and community-led support, what is it that they think we mean by that, and what work do we need to do to make sure that we understand what that means? So I'm sure Raj will just give you a lot more detail. But one of the things we thought, and Raj said to us right at the very beginning, that we can do all this work with our staff. Actually, if you, as in people working in the community, if we're not all coming from the same place on this, then we're not talking about the same thing. It's that language, isn't it? A shared language thing about understanding what we all mean. So hence, Raj has been introduced to Julie and various other people to help us try and move some of this stuff on. Is that okay, Raj? Is that fair enough?
Perfect. Really helpful that you're here. That's very nice. Again, because that's about perceptions, because Lee's here, so Lee can present it. If I presented it and thought I knew what Lee meant, that's what we're trying to do away with here, is these assumptions that we make. For example, the word community in the last 12 months in this country means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And we kind of want to work out what that is. So if you start off with the name, it's called a Community Lens Index. So why is it called that? Because I want to know, what lens have people got in when they're thinking about community? What is that lens? Is it just that it's something that's called community, but it's actually a statutory service that's dressed up as something else? Or is it pure community? Is it informal community? Is it, what's for me, my perception of community is, me cooking a extra meal for my neighbour that's come out of hospital. Nothing to do with any formal organisations, nothing, good old fashioned community. That's one perception from me. So if we can get those perceptions it's not about lining them up or organizing them necessarily, but being aware of them, being aware of the range of different assumptions out there. The first thing is, I think it will lead to a more harmonious system in Hartlepool, because I think we'll all, we'll know where each other's coming from. So just a simple starting point. Where are we coming from in terms of when we're talking about community? Nobody owns community. So that's the other thing, no one owns it. So everyone's got a slightly different take about how they deliver it, how they, relate to it. So let's just talk about the boring nitty gritty stuff. So essentially, it's kind of a survey workbook format. It will take about 45 minutes to complete. You'll be sent a link out via Julian and colleagues, and with some kind of explanatory, notes just on how to complete it and the approach to take. So that's quite straightforward. There's a save function, because I know everybody's busy. We're living in this time now. People haven't got time to sit 45 minutes necessarily. So you can do a bit, come back to it. We will do an initial period of 2 weeks to allow for responses to come back in. However, totally aware of the situation we're in. We can extend that if we need to, because, if we have any issues on the ground. So don't need to worry about that. To start off with, just encourage people to complete it. So that's the nitty gritty of it. Then in terms of the, once we get the results, we'll share them in a forum like this, with Lee and colleagues, and, we'll come up with a way to do that. What my reflection on this, and I don't know, Lee, hope she doesn't mind me saying this, because I work with lots of colleagues across the country, different authorities. And there's a spectrum of authorities. So this community work that Lee's described, obviously it's good, isn't it? It's the local authority putting you guys front and center of what they're doing. Across the country, there are some authorities that are not doing this at all. They're saying, well, after COVID, we'll look at that. Of course, that's a stupid statement, but people are saying these things. You have some people that are saying, well, not now, we'll kick it into the long grass. To be fair to Lee and colleagues, they haven't done that. They're saying, okay, this bit we can't do, but this bit we can do. So this has been prioritized now. So I think that's refreshing, the fact that we're getting on with it, and we're going to look at it now, regardless of the situation we're in. And we know that for the recovery of this current situation we're in, whenever recovery starts, and there's lots of different definitions and theories on it, this work is going to be really important, because it's going to help us to consolidate what we've got, help us build other things that we might need as well. So that's it really. I know that might make some sense, it might not. So it might be good if anybody's got any kind of questions, I think, so we can tease out.
No,
Julie's got a hand up.
Yeah, that was really clear, Raj. But
Raj, when you ask
Yes.
organisations to take part, is that all members of an organisation or one?
Yes. Yes. So yeah, good point, Julie. So you've just answered a really brilliant question. So if you go back to Lee's starting point, and she said we really wanted to know what where our workforce were at in terms of community. So I know Lee and Trevor and colleagues and Jill at Hartlepool. If I asked them to complete this, I'd get a really nice answer, because I know that they care about community, they get it, they understand elements of the third sector and other things as well. However, that would be making an assumption that Lee understands every single mind that works in social care and represents them. And that's not fair on Lee either, is it, to be fair? And that's the same with this. I would say, as many members of an organisation that can complete. I appreciate with volunteers, they may not want to do it, and that's fine. However, we've given an option, I think we've built in at the start, where people can identify if they are a volunteer, for example. And some people might want their say. Absolutely, they should go for it. So I think, yes, it doesn't matter who in an organisation. Secondly, forget about hierarchy. If someone says, I'm a frontline worker, is it frontline workers only? Forget it. I know some people that are, volunteer administrator, know Hartlepool like, that you wouldn't know. They know inside out, because they're on the phone, they're connected with people. So we don't make any assumptions about hierarchy, from a chief executive to a volunteer that comes in once a month or once a year. It does not matter. We want everybody in there, because we want to work out where is the actual value, and it's not stuck in job titles. That's a fallacy. We know that anyway, but we want to work out kind of where the real value is. With Lee, for example, I hope Lee doesn't mind me saying this again. When we did the index for Hartlepool social care staff, it was really interesting, just one small snippet, that administrators that had been redeployed to hubs, from what Lee had described, there was like a real kind of warmth and feeling, you know, as if like they'd been exposed to something, whereas before they'd been in a role maybe for, I don't know, dare I say it, 10, 20 years perhaps, doing the same job. And because they'd been given an opportunity to give a box to a family in need, that connection was built in them. Hang on a minute, I live here, I work here. This family lives in my area and they're in need. They've never been exposed to it. All of a sudden, all the synapses started going off with these workers. So we want to see that. So it's not about hierarchy. Everybody should complete it. And then we can contrast. But that's just a little snippet. I know Lee might have other things to say as well, but that's just a little flavour.
It is going to be absolutely fascinating seeing the results of this. And just to make it really clunkily clear, Becky introduced herself as the head coach of Hartlepool Hawks. If they have another 6 coaches and 14 volunteers, then if every single one of those wanted to complete the Community Lens Index, that would be brilliant.
Yes.
Right, great, okay. And then with that information, Raj, once we get that back, how will that make a difference practically to us in the voluntary sector, to the council? What kind of effects do you imagine it might have when we've got the information?
Yeah, good question. So firstly, we collate all that information, and there's 2 types of information. One is quantitative, so numbers, and one is qualitative, so the kind of the heart and soul of things. So we aggregate the 2. I think it's fair to say that in terms of the outputs of this, they go into 3 broad categories. One is the very quick win, short term. What can we change now? This is obvious, it's in front of us. You know, we can pick up the phone and make a few phone calls. Let's change this now. So there's those things. And then we've got the medium to long term things, and you know, things like commissioning intentions. And I think we'll come up with how we present that. But I think absolutely the first focus will be what are the quick wins, and celebrating some of the really good things that we're going to discover in that, and also build the medium and long term. You know, we can dine out on these results probably for the next 2 years, probably, I imagine, with our current situation. So yeah, there's lots of that. What I would say as well is when you're briefing any of your workforces that are completing this, for example, if we ask a question about learning disabilities or hospital discharge or residential care, don't worry about it. The briefing says answer it as you. Answer the questions as you are. We're trying to highlight what value the third sector's got. You know, are you punching at, above your weight or not? And we want to show that. So it might be that some of the terms you might not, it doesn't matter, just read the scenarios and answer it in whatever your current position or role is. So we can kind of highlight that value. What you'll find is with third sector, voluntary sector surveys that happen nationally, they tend to be quite doom and gloom. Tell us what the problems are with the sector. You'll see loads of them. There's lots of them going around now as well. This is different. This is the workbook. It's about building better for Hartlepool. That's what we're trying to do here. It's not just about complaining about the things that are not necessarily working. There's an opportunity to talk about things we're concerned about, but we've got a job to do. Like I said, there's going to be a big recovery here. Even the most conservative estimate would say there's 5 years of recovery, and we know that community is going to be at the center of that recovery from whenever that point kicks in. So let's start building this now. And if you've got a local authority that is saying, let's look at this now, they're not waiting for the government to say, send us your recovery plan. They're coming to you guys now and saying, let's start looking at it now. That's a big opportunity for us here. Really big, that is.
So would it be fair to say that the overarching goal here is about putting all the richness and strengths of community that have been in existence since time immemorial centre stage in terms of the town's overall well-being, and looking at utilising this community spirit and intelligence and resourcefulness for the benefit of Hartlepool people in ways in which perhaps the state has sort of taken charge of more and more in recent years, and so there's a bit of a rebalancing going on.
Yeah, we're trying to work out what's the interdependence. We all need each other, so let's measure where that interdependence is on which things. Again, that's one of our assumptions as well. The state's taken back all the control, but has it? Even, you know, are there some really small organisations that have just been getting on with something quietly, and maybe, you know, you might have some of your local organisations that have got a really good connection with one social worker, but nobody knows about it. Lee doesn't know about it. I don't know about it. I want to talk about that. I want to know where those relationships are, so then we can amplify. We can say what worked in that relationship. Why did that work? Can we do more? Is it because you could just pick up the phone to the person? Was there trust? Why was there trust between the two of you? What was that? And let's do more of it. So yeah, we've got a good journey to go on here, I think.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Raj.